Hello everyone. Welcome in Easy 400 training, guys. I hope you guys are doing well. Good evening to everybody. So, guys, in this particular training, we're going to talk about Azure DevOps, right? Now, what all things we will be covering? Okay, let me give you a quick introduction. So, guys, first we're going to talk about planning for your Azure DevOps, right? So, we'll talk about the transformation planning. What are the things that we need to keep in mind before working on any of the DevOps project, right? How the team's foundations looks like and how we will be able to create a structure over there, right? Now, apart from creating a structure, we're going to talk about how we will be able to, do the migration to DevOps. Now, probably, I have an ongoing project and I'm thinking to adopt the DevOps over here. So what are the things that we need to keep in mind in order to get this done, right? So the first part that one need to have a high level understanding about the DevOps and what are the things that we need to take care in the planning section of the DevOps over here, right? Now, proceeding further, we're going to talk about getting started with the source control. Now, when we say source controls are nothing but these are set of tasks or daily routine jobs that one need to perform on daily basis, right? So here we're going to talk about source control. What are the benefits of the source control that we have? Further, we're going to talk about what are the different types of the source control that we can use, right? So these are certain things that we should know. And further, we're going to talk about your Azure repositories, right? Now, repositories are nothing but where exactly my developers will be saving the code, and that particular code, whenever any sort of the changes will be required, how we can go ahead and manage them, right? Because different developers might have the different set of the versions. And over here, we will be using the source control in order to manage them. Further, we're going to talk about introduction to the GitHub. Now, when we talk about introduction to the GitHub, we can, keep our codes on the GitHub as well, right? Just like we have Azure repos, we have a shared location on the GitHub where we will be able to keep the data over here. Guys, are we not able to hear me? Guys,
Yeah, able
You're
to hear.
audible.
VK, kindly check your mic or just check, whether that particular mic is turned off or not. Yeah, VK, can you hear me? Can I get a quick confirmation on the chat? Guys, others, guys, just ping him on the chat, guys, that others can hear so that because he might not be able to hear us. Okay, guys. So now, guys, we were talking about the repositories, right? Where we can go ahead and keep it. And one of the way that we can keep it on the GitHub, that where exactly my code can reside over there, right? Now, further, we can talk about how we can go ahead and manage them, right? So we're going to talk about team foundation version control. We're going to talk about Git as well, right? So these are multiple options, guys, that we will be able to manage. Now, further, we're going to talk about managing the technical debt. Now, guys, when you say technical debt, right? Technical debt can be any bug, any issues which is ongoing within the project, or maybe my client is coming up with a newer requirement. So we're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about different kind of the sharings, how we can go ahead and share the information among the teams within the Azure DevOps, right? And how we will be able to manage them, right? So these are a bunch of things, guys, that we need to take care whenever we will be dealing with the bugs or any sort of the challenges which will be coming into the environment. Yeah. And then we're going to talk about working with the Git for the enterprise DevOps applications. Now, when you say working with the Git, guys, we are talking about local repository and how we can go ahead and do the branching if in case we will be pushing any sort of the code, right? Now, whatever I'm talking about, guys, right? So first of all, guys, let me help you with some of the clear pictures, right? What is your DevOps understanding is all about. So most of you must have attended the webinar as well, and you must have, some understanding what we have discussed on that particular day, right? So when you say DevOps, it's a development and operation, right? And there was a big gap earlier between your development and the operations. What exactly your operation team wants development to fulfill, and what development is creating, right? And there must be some technical aspect to it as well, that the things are not getting done, but your operations might not be able to understand those challenges over there. Now the entire DevOps is nothing just to reduce the gap between your development and operations, so that both the line of businesses can work together over here on a single project, right? So there will not be gap over there. Whenever somebody will be coming up with any sort of the requirements, we will be able to fulfill them, right? Now guys, whenever there will be any project will be coming in, right, every project have a life cycle, right? How long that you will be running on that particular project. So when you say project, it starts with your capturing the requirement, right? So your business analyst, your product owner, right, they will be contacting with the client and they will be capturing the requirement, right? Now guys, what happened after you capture the requirement? I need some inputs from you as well. What happened guys when you capture the requirement? After that, what we required? Let's say client is mentioning particular feature that my website looks like this, there are certain things that I want over there, right? So what you are capturing the requirement of the client, right? Now let's say you have captured the requirement. What do you require now?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure is
We
the
need
end goal.
team.
Mhm.
We need team to fulfill those requirements.
We need team to
Yeah,
fulfill
we
those
need a
requirements.
Bitbucket tool.
Big bucket
Clone
tool.
the repository. Yeah,
That
yeah,
is so Azure repository, Big bucket, GitHub. I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah, GitHub.
so basically you're talking about code, right? Where the code will be accessible, right? But before somebody will be coding something, they should have some agenda on what they will be working on, right? So once you have captured the requirement, right, what else you need?
Plan and design.
Plan, basically, right? Once you capture the requirement, you require a plan. Without a plan, what we are coding on? Without the plan, what kind of the infrastructure we will be creating? Are you getting my point? So once you will be able to get the requirement, you require a plan. Now that plan have various other aspects, right? So as rightly mentioned, what other teams will be working upon that particular plan, right? So every requirement cannot be fulfilled by one team. There will be number of teams working on a single project, right? So some teams will be working on the front end, some teams will be working on the back end, some teams will be creating the security aspect, some team will be working on the testing part, right? So once you will be getting able to do the requirement part, right, you required a plan, you required a strategy, basically, right? And on the basis of the plan, there are numerous other components will come into the picture, like your team creation is one of them, distribution is another, right? And let's say once you will be able to create the team, once you will be able to do the distribution part, what else you need? You need to monitor them, guys, right? We need to keep an eye that which particular team is working at what particular duration, what will be the turnaround time on working on any particular over there, right? I mean, any particular requirements or any particular changes which is happening over there, right? So once you will be able to do the distribution, you need efficient monitoring. Guys, are we able to follow this? Everyone? Now, once you will be able to do the efficient monitoring, definitely you need to keep an eye on the life cycle over here. Now, this is the part where you need to deliver things, right? You have requirement, you have planned them, right? You have distributed as per the planning to the team, right? Now, which particular team will be doing what particular task, you have distributed them, then you will be starting efficient monitoring among the team members. And what you will do after that? Let's say everything is done fine, right? What else? You required the implementation, isn't it?
So we required admin team.
You required admin team. So what about the admin? What kind of the admin team that you are talking about over here?
They could take the code and they can implement into the production server, like from the developer.
So that can be a contributor. Can we do that? Why only administrator required this? You required somebody to get the job done, right? Read and write ability. Not necessary that you will need an administrator to do so, right? Let's say there is a networking team. Not all the job in the networking team will be done by your network administrator. See, administrative privilege will be required in order to manage those users who will be working on that particular job, right? Are you getting my point? Who will be doing the job? Any particular person will have the required access, will do the needful, right? And usually we don't distribute administrative job easily, right? Administrator can be one or two in the entire team. Not the entire team will have the administrator role, right? So group of administrator we create only to manage those users who will be working on the project, right? So when we talk about the implementation, we are talking about, let's say I have captured the requirement, I have done the planning, my developers have developed the code. Now this is the time for execution of that particular code, right? Now this is where your code will be executed and now you will be able to create something, right? Now, once the implementation will be done over here as well, you required monitoring, right? Whether there will be a bug, whether there will be a challenges or not. So monitoring is something which required everywhere, right? So you need to keep an eye over here as well, right? Now I'm not writing that because I have already included that particular part over there. And once you have implemented, you required a deployment over there. Now, these are a bunch of things what we have, but how you will do in the DevOps, right? So in order to capture the requirements and the planning part and the team distribution, what Microsoft has given us, Azure boards, right? What is Azure board, guys? Any idea? Guys, what are Azure boards?
No.
Okay.
Tasks operations.
Task and operations. Okay. Any particular job requirements? So guys, your entire DevOps is about 5 tools that we have over here, right? Azure boards, Azure repositories, Azure repos that we call it, right? Your Azure pipelines that we create, right? And further we create Azure artifacts. Then we need to create a test plans over here. And entire DevOps is about these 5 tools. That's how you will be able to use them, right? Now, one by one, we're going to touch upon each and every tool over here, like Azure boards, Azure repos, Azure pipelines. Now in pipelines, you have continuous integration and continuous deployment, you have artifacts and you have test plans, right? Where you will be able to test any sort of the change that you will be doing it. Artifacts are nothing but dependencies of any sort of the task that you have, right? But what exactly is the power of these tools? What exactly we will be using it? What are the purpose? What exactly these tools will be solving my purpose over here till the time I'm fetching the requirement and by the time I'm getting the requirements over here, right? So guys, let's say you have a project and there is a group of developers will be working on a project. Let's take an example, right? Set of developers I have. Now, developer 1, developer 2, developer 3, and so on, right? Multiple developers have their own systems. They are working on a project, right? Now there is another team who will be working on a different section of that particular project. Now there are a bunch of other members who are working on this particular project over here. Now let's say it's a team of 15-20 members who will be working on this project. Now every machine have a different, what you can say, tools they might be using. Probably somebody is using Visual Studio or maybe some other tools, but working on the same project. Now guys, let me ask this thing. Yeah. Guys, I request you, if in case you don't have any questions, guys, please keep your mic on mute. Mahesh, you are not on mute. Okay, guys, proceeding further. Now, these developer working on the code, right? Let's say they all are working on the website and they need to work on different features over here. Now, what happened in this different features they will be working upon? Guys, what do you think? Are they going to make changes in the master repository, or let's say any particular file which is there for the project directly, or you required a mechanism in order to get this done, right? So let's say these are the developers and I want them to work on a particular section. Let's say this is one repository, this is another repository, and this is third repository, right? Where these developers are updating the code. Now, what is repository? That is your master file where the codes are available, right? So any changes they are doing, right? Do they need to do directly on this particular repository, or there has to be another mechanism, guys? What do you think? Let's say I need to work on different sections over here. Anyone?
Other mechanism should be there.
Another mechanism is required. Why you think like that we required another mechanism?
Because someone is changed in master file, or like some same other person is accessing like that, means that kind of.
No, I mean, these are the people who are supposed to work on the project, right? And that is the reason they have the access to the master file. Otherwise, one should not be providing the access to that. So is it the accessibility point of view or something else, guys?
They require a GitHub tool where they can access the
GitHub tool.
code. Yeah. Where
Okay.
they can pull the request, they can commit the changes, and they
See,
can.
Rafi, what I'm saying that, if I don't want to use GitHub, can I not use this mechanism? I definitely required GitHub for the repository. I cannot use Azure repository, Bitbucket. Others can be also used, right? GitHub is not necessary that I should be using it, right? We are talking about code.
Foundation server also we can use.
Right. We'll talk about it. That is the part of your project selection. Yeah, Rafi. I mean, whether you will be using Git, a distributed mechanism, or Team Foundation version control, whether it will be centralized.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, coming back. Now, guys, over here, guys, if somebody is committing into the master file, right, there can be chances that, somebody have committed a incorrect code over there. Now, if one person is doing the mistake, others should not be bearing the entire, changes or, the problems in their code. One problem can, these kind of a thing can happen, right? So what they do, they actually clone that particular repository local, everybody, right? And they made changes over there, and they have different branches. They have local branches, and they keep master files somewhere else. That later they would like to check if everything works fine local, then they will push to the feature branch. And then if they will be able to check everything is fine, then they will be able to commit to the master branch. And this will be followed everywhere, guys. Why? Because this is the way through which you will be able to keep different versions. Or if there will be any challenges, you will be able to roll back easily. So basically an efficient mechanism that you should have over here, right? Now the entire structure of your source control will be discussed on the basis of it, that what kind of the process you will be using, distributed process you will be using, or whether you will be using Git, where these kind of the changes can occur, right? So these are certain things that we will be discussing over here, right? So over here, guys, bunch of developers working on a project, they required a mechanism, so they will be able to update the code in the master file. Now, guys, why we required a code in the master file? Why not in any other repository? Why master repository? Why we call it master basically? Anyone? Think, guys, and just let me know.
The master branch only we can pull the code to production servers. That is the only reason we can take master branch.
Production servers, okay. Anything else?
We can use master file anywhere, wherever required by the different engineers or the different developer team.
Anmol, see, master file is, keeping all the information, right? So usually we don't make it accessible for everybody. Yeah. So the thing is, why we required a master? Guys, this is a centralized repository from where your pipelines takes the code. Are you getting my point? We required a source, right? From where the implementation from the execution start, right? Now your master file is that particular source from where they will pull the code. Now, definitely, we required certain file from where we can say that, okay, every testing and everything has been completed. Now, this is the place where one should need to bring the code in, right? So master file is something that, all those changes that you have done on the code, everything has been tested, everything is fine. Now you will only push into the masters. And that is the reason, your pipeline fetch the code. So master file is that source from where your pipeline fetch the data. Clear, guys? Now you can have feature branches as well. You can have feature pipelines as well who will be, used for the testing purpose. But if you are talking about, those kind of the pipelines which will helping you to deploy your resources within the production, those pipelines are directly connected with the master files. Clear, guys? So this is your source from where. So guys, why we required that particular pipeline? Because guys, code is raw, what we have kept over there. In order to convert that particular code into executable, you required that particular pipeline, right? Now there are two kind of the pipelines that we will need over here. Now what are those two pipelines, guys? Anyone? One is
build pipeline, release pipeline.
Build and release, absolutely, right? Now, why we required build pipeline? Because build pipeline makes sure that what are the things, what are the requirements that we need to include can be checked in an early stage. For an example, I have bought a code. Now I executed the code. My testing team able to find out certain problems. So before I will move that particular code forward, I can put that code, I can push that code back, and I can ask my development team to get the further correction done. Because the late I identify the problem, the more I spend on unnecessary things. The thing is, if I will be proceeded with the bad code and I would have implemented it and I'm finding this particular problem in the deployment or in the, what you can say, creation of the resources, it means that I have already invested money and now I have to correct, I have to come back, and a lot of time and the investment will be further impacted, right? So how early you will be able to find the challenge, it is better for us. Clear, guys? So over here, when you talk about build, right? I mean, build have certain set of tasks, right? Now, during the build process, you have to execute the pipeline in order to check whether the number of the tasks that you have completed, it's successfully able to execute or not, right? Now, build have certain dependencies. There are a lot of things that you will be taking care in the build, right? Now, guys, what is your pipeline exactly? What exactly your pipeline is? Anyone, guys? When you say pipeline, let's say build pipeline. Let's define a build pipeline. What do you mean by a build pipeline, guys? Anyone?
Pipeline is a carrier between your code and the repository. I mean, your work machines and the actual repository.
Work machine and the actual. And what about deployment pipeline? Is it the same? So how your build pipeline is different from the deployment pipeline? Why we are categorizing it? There has to be some reason, isn't it? Right? If the pipeline is the carrier where the resources can be created with the help of that, it's a generalized definition, right? But how I can differentiate between the build and the deploy process? Because certainly
the
these are
task
two
you
different.
link to these pipelines will be different. Build pipeline, it is more like deployment of your code. I mean, build pipeline can be like you may
both
be
have the
running
deployment of the code only, isn't it? Both are running the code only. Your pipeline itself a code.
Right.
The entire pipeline that you have,
Yeah,
it's a
we can
code.
use the Jenkins, like we can deploy the latest code.
You can use
build and
Jenkins,
publish
you
it.
can use Maven, you
Yes,
can
sir.
use NPM, you can use Universal, if you know ML. There are many, right? But the thing is, what are those? Those are package managers, right? Those comes under, we'll talk about it, guys. We'll talk about that. What are pipelines? So guys, pipelines are nothing. These are codes, right? Pipelines are nothing. In a nutshell, pipelines are code. Now, what we fulfill that particular code? Guys, see, in your deployment, there can be multiple stages. There can be release 1 stage, release 2, release 3. Now, why we create those release phases? Because with every change, we are trying to improve on something. But why we required build? Because build is nothing, but we are ensuring that whatever task that we will be executing, all the dependency requirement has been automatically fulfilled over there, right? Now, if you talk about any sort of the dependency, there can be bunch of tasks. Without build, deployment cannot happen. Because deployment will be execution of the processes that you have already taken care in the build process. Now, this is the time you will be proceeding from the build to the deployment process. And that is the reason we call it deploying pipeline, or you can say your continuous deployment pipelines. But your build is very important initially, where you have bunch of tasks that you will be bringing in. Now guys, what are these tasks? Now there can be certain tasks that I would like to create certain set of resources, or maybe there will be certain tasks that I would like to run in a particular sequential order. So your pipeline is nothing but a series of jobs and tasks that you will have in that particular process to be included, and that is the part of your build pipeline. Now guys, now your pipeline is a code. So definitely your pipeline needs an environment to execute. So where these pipelines are executing? These pipelines are code, right? Guys, are we able to follow this? Everyone?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So these pipelines are code, right? Now, if you want to execute a code, you require an environment, right? I cannot run my code anywhere. Let's say I'm a Java developer. I have written a code. I cannot run my code anywhere. I required JVM, right? I required SDK and ID, integrated development environment, where my code makes sense. Otherwise, if libraries and functions of that particular code is not there, I cannot run my code anywhere. Yeah? So similarly, your YAML or any particular language, that pipeline that you will be using over here needs an environment. Now, from where that environment is coming in? So for that particular purpose, Microsoft has given Microsoft hosted agents. In the backend, these are pools of VM skill set, or you can say pools of virtual machine. Guys, what is VM skill set? Any idea? Virtual machine
No.
skill set? Okay. All right. Let's start slightly basic, guys, right? Let's talk about your VM skill set part. Let's understand the infrastructure first, guys. Otherwise, this will not make any sense, okay? Let's understand your infra. Guys, when you say infrastructure as a service, what do you understand from that? What is infrastructure as a service? Or IaaS?
This service will use to maintain and manage deployment for infrastructure over to the cloud environment. Infrastructure including the virtual machines, networks, and the few policies or whatever we are using in our on-premises data center.
So if you say that, infrastructure as a service helping you saving the cost, right? So how your infrastructure as a service helping you saving the cost? What all things falling under the infra? Let's understand infra first, guys.
Storage network. And
Storage network and
the data center. Your physical data center.
So data center have storage and network already. So data center has everything. I got him a point. If you say data center include everything. All thing is there, right? So how you define infra then? Your data center is infra. So what you are using infrastructure as a service, data center as a service, right? So let's break down what all things that you will get in data center.
Compute, storage, and
absolutely,
network.
guys. Compute, storage, and network. Absolutely, guys. This is what I was looking for. Compute, network, and storage. Now, guys, let me ask this thing. What all things falling under the computational part? How you define a compute? Let's go granular over here. What are compute, guys?
It's like 2 GB RAM, 8 GB RAM. That
okay, RAM.
That computing, yeah.
What else?
CPU.
Virtual CPU. What else? Guys, have you seen those Intel ads? Dual core processor, multi-core processors, right? i7. What are these? Right? So V cores, right? Now what else? Your memory, execution memory, not the storage one, for the execution, right? And these are basically, these are the things which will be part of your compute, right? Which will help you execute your resources on top of it, right? So let's say if you will be hosting a website, your website required a compute. And at the end of the day, how you manage them using IOPS, right? Input and output per second. This is how you define the compute for any virtual machine that you will be creating, right? Let's say I'm going into the portal and I'm creating a virtual machine over here, right? Let's say I went into the virtual machine section and I'm trying to create any virtual machine, right? Now, what is the agenda of creating the virtual machine? Some application supposed to be run on that. Now, how I will decide what kind of the application I can run? So definitely I need to pick a size of the virtual machine, isn't it? What image I will be using and what will be the size of the virtual machine I will pick. This is where my compute is coming from, right? From my VM sizes, right? Virtual CPUs, RAM, data disk, maximum input and output, temporary storage, right? This is what which will be helping us in order to define my input and output per second, right? This is the performance I'm getting over here. This is how you monitor the performance, right? Network will definitely be there in order to provide the connectivity, and you require a storage, right? Now, why we require a storage? Certain files I would like to keep, certain dependent files, right? And what are their storage? Storage are nothing. These are disk. That's how you keep your data. And what else you will be getting as a part of the infrastructure as a service, guys? You required a Hyper-V. Now, why we required a Hyper-V? What's the use case of Hyper-V?
To manage your VMs.
To manage our VMs. And why we are creating multiple VMs? Something I would like to accomplish, right? What's the purpose of installing Hyper-V on top of our infra? Let's say you purchased a laptop. Why you want to install a Hyper-V on top of your laptop? Think, guys.
To use multiple operating system in the same laptop.
Multiple
Or to
operating system.
Yes.
Guys, in other words, can I say I want to use my hardware up to the full potential? Currently, if you see on my machine, I'm just using a Google Chrome. I'm using MS Paint and a Zoom application. Do you really think, my machine, I'm doing justice to the entire hardware right now? I'm not using it up to the full potential. And now, guys, think about how many computers, remain underutilized throughout the life cycle. 5 years from now, I will not be using this laptop either. And the entire life cycle, I have not efficiently used my machine. And that was the challenge of the infrastructure, guys. And that is the reason, that technology came into the market where you will be using Hyper-V. So in year 2013, 2014, and 2015, it was a big boom. Everybody, working on the VMware or, Hyper-V. If you know this virtualization, right? Everybody is very happy with this concept until and unless further enhancement of the technology happened, right? So now what was that another enhancement? Now, guys, with Hyper-V, you have individual environment running, right? You have multiple VMs. Let's say you were using 16 GB RAM. You did the justice. You assigned 44 GB RAM to individual machines, and you are using individual environment over here. Now, can be the same operating system or multiple phone machine or the different. That is your choice, depending what you would like to run inside it, right? Now, guys, being a developer, now think from a developer perspective, right? That developer required JDK. If they are a Java developer, right? Their developer required Visual Studio. That developer required PHP toolkit. That different developer required different framework in it, isn't it? Right? And this now after all this expenditure of selection of the machine size, installing the operating system infrastructure, now your developer are ready to execute the code. Now they can do something at least. So think from the developer perspective, how much time developer need to spend before they will be able to run anything. First, they need to purchase the hardware, then they need to purchase the license of the operating system, then they need to install the framework. And after spending so much money and so many hours, now they are ready to write a single line of code. Now, that was the challenge on the on-premises. Now, some of the another, that challenge had slightly mitigated, when infrastructure as a service been provided by the cloud service provider, that you can quickly create the VM, right? So VM part and OS part is now been rectified, but still one need to spend a lot of time in order to install the framework. Now, guys, let me ask this thing. Even though if a developer was able to install or run an application, do you think developer will be able to use all the services of the operating system with the help of that application? Let's say I'm running a website. Will my website will be consuming all the services of my operating system? What do you think, guys?
No.
Not necessary. Yeah.
Definitely
You
not,
only
guys.
use that particular application.
Do you really think, I mean, in the backend, if you go into this services.msc, I'm just see this OS related services as well. See how many services which are running. Even though your application is not running, but if in case there will be up and running operating system, you will see, there are hundreds of services are already running in the background, right? And many of them, we are not even using it. I got my point. So guys, you have acquired the, the hardware up to the full potential, but we have not done justice with the licensing cost. Are you getting my point? Your OS services are still remain underutilized, right? Now, earlier on, we done the hardware virtualization, we saved the hardware cost, but what about the licensing cost? Licenses also require the cost. See how much licenses is costing you over here, guys. If I will be going with Windows Server 2016 Generation 1 data center license, right? 9,887. If I already own the license, you can see how much cost I'm able to save over here. Let's say I already have a product key. $5,048.93. So basically 49% of the money is about only licensing, isn't it? So hardware utilization is fine, but what about the license utilization? So that's where your platform as a service comes into the picture, guys. That Microsoft says, right, that bring your code and you can execute over there. Are we able to follow, guys? Where infra will be provided by Microsoft, your operating system is also provided by Microsoft, your runtime, your framework is also provided by Microsoft. Microsoft says you go ahead and bring your code and execute it over here. Are we able to follow, guys? Is this part is clear with everyone? So if you say infra will be definitely there, otherwise how we will be able to run that particular operating system, right? So host operating system will be there. Now, whether you will be using Linux based like Ubuntu, Red Hat, SUSE, right? Debian, CentOS, or whether you will be using Windows Server 16, 19, right? All these will be either Linux based or either Windows based, right? And what happened on top of it, being a developer, you can bring any sort of the runtime over here, right? Now that's where Microsoft says that you will be able to save money if you will be going with the platform as a service, right? But guys, what happened when your application will be utilized by hundreds and thousands of the users? What will happen? Let's say thousands of the users are accessing your application now. What will happen after that? It required more compute, right? Now, how we will be able to meet that demand of the more compute? I have created a website. It's running absolutely fine. Now there are thousands of users are accessing it. My machine required more compute. Now it is getting 95% utilized. What will happen if my machine is getting 100% utilized?
We need to deploy another VM.
Add more CPU and RAM.
Add more CPUs and RAM, right? So we required more compute. So guys, there are two ways that we required more compute, right? That we will be able to fulfill. One is vertical scale and one is horizontal scale. Clear, guys? Now, what do you mean by vertical scale and what do you mean by horizontal scale? Anyone, guys? We are talking about scaling now.
Horizontal, we need to increase the VM, I mean instance. Vertical, in the same instance, we can increase the hardware like CPU, memory. And
correct. Absolutely correct. Yeah. Now, guys, when we say vertical scaling, now let's understand this. Vertical scaling means nothing but resizing. Resizing means I will like to increase the configuration physically. I would like to add more RAM. I would like to add more CPUs and vCores, and I would like to increase the size. But guys, let me ask this thing. Let's understand this practically. You are working on a laptop, right? Your machine required more compute. Can you take out the RAM from your laptop while your machine is running and put another RAM with a higher configuration while your machine is running right now? Can you do that? You have to shut down that, right? Now in the cloud as well, we required shutdown. That shutdown is only required for 30 seconds, but shutdown is there. Now guys, do you really think it's a feasible idea when your machine is getting utilized up to the 90 to 95%, I will be rebooting the machine with a higher size? Bad idea, isn't it? My machine is getting 95% of the workload and I'm rebooting my server. So vertical scaling is not a good choice. Definitely not when your machine is highly utilized. If the machine is not getting highly utilized, probably then I can probably think of resizing the resource, but not at the time when the machine is getting higher or highest workload. Make sense? And guys, vertical scaling have their own challenges, because let's say if you're going with D series machine, E series, F series machine, you can go up to some extent. You cannot go further beyond that. Make sense? So vertical scaling can be the choice. Let's say within a year, once or twice, when I'm not getting that much of workload and I'm thinking that some more application need to be deployed, I can go ahead and increase the size. But ongoing production environment, horizontal scale, guys, always need horizontal scale, where you can identical instances can be deployed over here. And why and what we use, guys, in order to achieve this horizontal scale? The name of the service is VM scale set, virtual machine scale set, which help me in creating more number of the instances over here. So when you go into the virtual machine scale set over here, you can auto scale, guys. Yeah. So you can select your resource group RG, right? You can give a name, let's say VMSS, and where I will be creating this particular resources over here in East US region. And guys, this is where your scaling option that you need to link into. That let's say initial, I would like to start with, let's say 4 instances, and custom policies that I would like to give that minimum number of the instances. So guys, it's elastic in nature. It's not necessarily that it will be only able to scale number of the instances. Let's say those instances are not getting utilized, it can reduce the number of the instances as well. So it's elastic in nature. It can go high, it can go less as well on the basis of the number of the workload. So minimum, it can, let's say I have started with 4, but if these 4 instances are not getting fully utilized, it can reduce the number of the instances as well. Right? This can also happen. Now over here, and this continue to happen by the time it will go to minimum 1 if it is not properly utilized. Maximum, you can give the limit. It has the capacity to go up to 1,000 instances. Are you getting my point? So over here, you can give that particular capacity, and here you can give the threshold. So guys, the terminology what we use for vertical scaling, scale up and scale down. For horizontal scaling, scale in and scale out, because it is horizontal, right? So let's say I want more number of the instances for 80% of the utilization, and minimum duration, let's say it will check whether the utilization is stable. It should not be the fluctuation where it will be creating more number of the instances. Yeah. And then scaling in, let's say if the utilization is happening less than 50%, it will be reducing the instances by 1. Yeah. So these are the conditions that you can give in VM scale set, right? Now, coming back to the previous discussion, guys. Why we are discussing this? Because we have to discuss something else, right? So here, if your pipelines are getting executed, right? Pipelines can have number of tasks. Pipeline may require more number of jobs to be executed. Now, definitely, guys, you required more compute over here as well, isn't it? If you have series of tasks to execute, more number of the computes can come over here. Yes or no? Guys, are we able to follow?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the reason, guys, you required agents over here, and those agents are nothing but the VMs, where exactly this particular jobs are getting done. And depending on the need, it can scale as well, right? And that is the reason we call it pool, because it is not a single machine. It is an agent pool which will be running in the back end, right? Now there are two kinds of the agent. One agent is Microsoft hosted, another agent is self-hosted. Now, what is the difference? Guys, Microsoft hosted agents are serverless in nature. It means by the time your pipeline is running, only during that particular phase, it will create a machine where the code will be executed. And once the execution will be happening, no environment, no infrastructure is there, nothing. Are we able to follow? So the system and the pool is getting created during the execution of the pipeline. Once the pipeline has executed, there is nothing there. It's all gone. So that is how we are saving the cost. Otherwise, if let's assume that we need to run a server 24/7 and I only need that server during the execution of the pipeline, or let's say the pipeline I require to run, let's say 5 times a day, Now, what about rest of the other time? My machine remains underutilized, isn't it? Guys, are we able to follow? Everyone?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the reason, guys, that Microsoft hosted pipelines are one of the best way, a cost-efficient way of creating the agent pool where my pipelines can execute. And what are pipelines? These are set of tasks and jobs running in the sequential order, right? So these are your pipelines, right? Now we also have, let's say, self-hosted agents. Now, self-hosted agents can be a choice if, in case I would like to create my own virtual machine, set of virtual machines, and resources where I would like to decide, what could be the possible environment, and I would like to make them online and offline depending on my need whenever the execution is happening. So basically, we required more control. Right? We required more control. Earlier on, it was managed by Microsoft. We just tell that what kind of the environment I need, and in the backend, that machine was created by Azure, right? But now we want to create the environment of our own, and we want that environment to be there for certain duration of time, and that is your self-hosted agent. Now, why we required agent? For the execution of the pipeline, so you can run your build and deploy both kind of the pipelines with the help of these agents. Clear, guys? Now, guys, during this execution, there can be a possibility there are certain dependencies which are not fulfilling with the help of the task. There are certain binary files, there are certain packages that I have to bring. So what we were talking about, Jenkins, right? Jenkins is a package installer which creates their own kind of the agent. So we create a virtual machine and we put Jenkins over there. Similarly, we have package managers like Maven, NPM. There are many other packages managers that we bring in so that we can fulfill the dependency requirement with the help of that. These are package managers, right? And there are certain dependency requirement that we need to fulfill, like binary files, variables that I will be declaring, some connection strings which will be helping us creating the connection, and those we keep it in artifacts, guys. Clear? Guys, are we able to follow? Everyone?
Just in one doubt actually. So Microsoft hosted agents are, you mean to say like stateless and self-hosted are stateful, right?
Not stateless and stateful. What I'm saying, this is serverless.
Okay.
Okay.
So serverless and stateless, both are same time, right? Or
okay,
we can consider.
See, what happens? The environment is still there, isn't it? Right? If you're saying stateless or not stateless, right? So it means whether it will maintain the environment for you or not, right? Now there can be a possibility that there will be series of tasks happening one another, and by the time another task will be coming into the picture, that particular agent is still running. So it's not necessary that something which is stateless will not be able to run the series of stateful tasks. It can do that. Are you getting my point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what we have to understand over here, that it's helping us to meet our goal where I don't need to worry about the underlying infrastructure, right? Now, whether it is stateful or stateful not, I mean, that depends on the pipeline, and usually that has to be stateful because the pipeline is a series of tasks, right? So it will be working in the sequential order, right? But by the time all the series of the tasks will be happening, I need an environment, and that's where this agent is helping me out. Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys. Now, artifacts are nothing. These are dependencies that you will have, right? And then we require an infrastructure where your resources will be getting created, and that's where your Azure infrastructure will be coming into the picture, right? Like you will be creating VMs, you will be creating your databases, you will be hosting your website. On that website, you can host on top of the VM, you can host on the app service plan, you can go with the containerized application, you can go with the Kubernetes cluster. There are n number of options available that how you can pursue with the deployment. But by the time you will be reaching the deployment, you have to do a lot. You have to do the execution of the build. There are the rest of the processes running, and we need to take care of the deployment as well. Now, these are certain things that we need to take care, and the entire study is your DevOps. Guys, certain understanding what is DevOps now? Did we get a high level view of the DevOps? That what we will be doing in this particular course, right? So requirement planning and team distribution, right? And efficient monitoring is the way how you track them up, right? And that's where your Azure boards are helping you out. Azure repositories are nothing. These are the repositories which will be used by your developers in order to keep your raw code over there. Pipelines, when you will be converting that raw code into executables, that are your pipelines, and artifacts are the dependencies, and any sort of the testing that you have to do, whether strategy testing or any sort of the thinking that you will be creating a different set of the pipelines, you can have your test plans available for strategy making, and any sort of the testing environment that you will have, you can keep it in the test plan over there. And the entire study will be revolving around these 5 tools over here. There are certain bunch of other tools as well, like your Sonar Cloud. You can have your GitHub instead of Azure repositories that we can use, right? So local Gits. So we'll talk about that, right? I mean, these are the things that we will be discussing in upcoming sessions, right? Now we also need to understand that how this app service plan works. So we'll talk about how your PaaS functionality will be working. There are a lot of things, guys, that we will be discussing over here, that how this particular PaaS works, the app service plan, the auto scale, ACU part, right? So just like what we have, right? So till now, what we have discussed, what is the infrastructure as a service, how the auto scaling mechanism work, and what we need to understand in your Azure DevOps, that how the workflow looks like, right? Clear, guys?
So our virtual scale sets are nothing but which are helping your horizontal scaling, right?
Right. Compute, more computational need, more hardware, and more licensing requirement.
Adding more instances of the machine.
Right. The moment you will be coming on the more instances over here, definitely individual instance will have individual licensing as well, right? So it will not increase the hardware cost, it will also increase the licensing cost as well, right? And that's what your platform as a service has resolved the problem. So we'll talk about that particular part. Till now, I hope this much is pretty much clear with everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So guys, as today was day 1, right? So it's a kind of an introductory session that what we will be covering in this. Now further, I will show you that what all things that you need to take care, right? So first of all, we will create a virtual machine. We will set up a lab over here, right? And in that particular lab, we will be doing all the practicals, right? So we required an active subscription where we will be creating a virtual machine, and then whatever tools that we required. For an example, we required local Git, right? We required your Visual Studio Code for branching, right? We required Visual Studio community version, right? So this all we will be downloading and installing it, right? And what all things that we have to do. So tomorrow, guys, what we will do, we'll spend good amount of time. Let's say today we have spent around 1 hour. Tomorrow we will be spending slightly more. We will set up the lab. We will go ahead and see it, how the branching works, how we can go ahead and create projects, how your Azure Active Directory will be integrated, and how we will be able to create teams, and how we will be able to work upon these particular tools over here. Clear, guys? So tomorrow onwards, we will be starting the labs where we will touch upon Azure boards. So I will be helping you with some of the assignment on daily basis, guys, that you will be doing it on your spare time, right? So you will have some hands-on practice as well, that how your Azure boards, Azure repos, and pipelines will be working upon. So good amount of time. So guys, around tomorrow, we will be talking about Azure boards. Then accordingly, we will be proceeding with our discussion with the Azure repos, and then we'll proceed our discussion with the Azure pipeline and artifacts. And further, we will spend our time while deploying the infrastructure on the on-premise on your Azure infrastructure, guys, and how we can go ahead and create a containerized application. And then we'll talk about release strategy, where we'll be talking about blue-green deployment, A/B testing, canary deployments, and many more, guys. Guys, do we have a fair understanding? Any doubt, any queries so far? All good? Guys, any questions what we have discussed so far, guys? Please let me know.
No, okay.
All okay? All right. So guys, with that, we are concluding our today's session. This is just creating a high level overview over here. Tomorrow onwards, I will show you how to set up your environment, and then we will be proceeding further with each and every tool deployments over there. Clear, guys? Okay, guys.
One question. We supposed to have 6 to 8 PM class, right? As it's a weekend batch, if I'm not wrong.
Right. For today, it was 1 hour, and further onwards, it will be 2 hour class, right? So this is what I've got the information. So that's the thing.
Fine.
Yeah.
No problem, Jatin. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
Jatin?
Yeah, Mahesh. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, may I know the course duration for this?
Guys, course duration depends that, how much we are covering on daily basis, right? So probably the course duration, we will be able to finish within a month over the weekend classes that we have, right? This is what we are planning between, 3 to 5 weeks that we will be able to spend, weekend 2-hour session. But probably it depends that how much we will be covering, because we cannot leave the session in between if the duration is getting done, right? So that is something that we need. It's a part of depending, how much we will be able to cover. Once we will be able to cover the DevOps, I mean, usually 4 to 5 weeks. Yeah, that's the usual time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, guys, any further questions coming to your mind? Go ahead, please.
Jitin, so Azure DevOps, shall we call it as PaaS or SaaS?
DevOps is your PaaS, but SaaS, software as a service, required a licensing solution, right? So over here you required, right? So you can use DevOps as a service, just like you use Azure as a service. So it's a DevOps as a service. Now DevOps as a server is also available, but over there you have to bear the cost of the infrastructure, basically. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we'll talk about the pricing as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah,
thanks.
You're welcome.
How can we join tomorrow's session? Link will be the same or a different one?
I will share the link with you. Don't worry. Right. So you will get the links.
Is there any certification for this?
AZ400, guys.
Okay, means it needs to be cleared. Exam needs to be cleared.
See, examination is your choice, right? After the training, if you like to give this examination, right, you want to, be certified at AZ400 certified engineer, right? So that is something that you can give examination after the training. But before you will be proceeding with the training, after you finish all the training sessions, do complete all the labs, right? And then you can proceed with the examination. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Any further questions, guys? Any doubt? All good?
Yeah, Jitin.
Okay. All right, guys. So thanks a lot, guys, for giving your time over the weekend, guys. See you all tomorrow. And thank you for guys joining. Be safe, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jitin. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.